In 2018, wildfires threatened residents on the south side of Francois Lake near Burns Lake, BC. The BC Wildfire Service was only able to provide limited fire protection due to a lack of resources. Locals stepped into that void and took it upon themselves to stop the fires. Clint Lambert gives his account of fighting the Nadina Lake fire.
I remember the night that they started. We saw that there was a glow up on the hill there, and we actually got in the pickup and drove up till we got to the place, and there was a whole bunch of us. There was probably 10 vehicles sitting there, and we all just sat around talking. We're like, oh yeah, blah blah blah. Didn't have any worries in the world. We thought, oh yeah, BCWS will be here and they'll put the fire out, and there won't be any issue type thing. But didn't quite work that way.
What was your early impressions of BCWS response?
A little bit surprised of the lack of response. There was a big fire event or wind event that day, and it blew through, and they had to scramble and get the equipment to a gravel pit. But they still ended up losing one piece of equipment as the fire went over top of the gravel pit. And after that, BCWS basically didn't do a response on the Nadina. They were kind of in shambles. There was rumors that the incident commander, the guy that was the red shirt over it, it spooked him and he left. He didn't come back.
Right.
So that's when the community took it upon themselves to start to get organized and move equipment into strategic places and start building guards, and started to get ready for the fire that was coming.
So at some point you were issued an evacuation order. Could you tell us how that came about? What do you understand of the significance of evacuation orders?
Didn't really do anything other than mess us up. We didn't pay any attention to the evacuation order. We just kept doing what we knew we needed to do to save our community. So sometimes you just got to do what you got to do, right? And so we did what we needed to do. He'd already had a public meeting inside an evacuation order. He said that's the first time that BCWS has ever done that. You guys aren't leaving, so how can we work together type of a thing. And I had tried to initiate a couple of times up at their command center to try to, like I said, we need to work together if we're gonna beat this thing.
And you would think that they would want to make use of every resource they could. It seems to me, though, that they did have several resources. They had your group. Do you think that the BCWS just does not consider you a resource?
That was what troubled me the most, I think. Like in my head, it wasn't that, oh, let's go be a bunch of cowboys and fight a fire. It was, these guys are overwhelmed and they need help. And we stepped into a void, but then after we did that, they did nothing but try to cut our knees out from underneath us to get us out of there. They shut the ferry down so that people couldn't so that we couldn't access fuel or whatever, food. They figured they were just going to starve us out and that we were going to run out of diesel and we wouldn't be able to fight the fire anymore. But we ended up creating some really good relationships with the First Nations, and actually they were instrumental in us continuing.
You've structured or helped structure a bit of an organization there.
Yeah, we have a society. It's called the Chinook Emergency Response Society, to put out fires in my electoral area. I'm an electoral area director for the regional district of Bulkley and Achako.
It seems to me that some people would likely think that that would be irresponsible to encourage others to put themselves at risk doing this kind of a vigilante.
You know what, Daniel, I don't really give a two hoots. Like I recommend people make their own societies, get education, get some training. And actually, Mike Farnworth and I had a conversation about that, and I told him, I said, the way that BCWS and the regional district handled things has changed people's thought patterns or the way they assess things, and now these people think that they can stay behind. And there's some people that can stay behind, and there's a lot of people that can't. And they need to be able to.
Are you suggesting that has to be up to the individual to make that decision?
Really, it is. It is up to the individual.
Who could do a better job of initial attack than the people that are closest to it? Like,
the last fire was started by a tractor, and it was in about the first or second week in September. I phoned BCWS here in Burns Lake, and they said, we don't have anybody. They've all been disbanded. They've all gone back to school. He said the closest crew that we have is in Houston. And if we had sat around and waited for 2 hours for a BCWS crew to come, it would have been way larger than 2.5 hectares. But what's frustrating is it's in everybody's interest to put the fire out as quick as possible. And so even if they don't think that we're trained or whatever it is, our end goal is the same, that we get the fire out. I hope that's their end goal.
It's their clearly stated mandate. I looked that up today.
One of the other big things that we noticed was that the guys that actually had the boots on the ground weren't making the decisions. And the guys that aren't there, that didn't get dirty, are the ones making the decisions. And so you have a big disconnect. You're being told to do something. Fire can change extremely quickly, and you're being told to do something that makes now, a half hour later, doesn't make any sense to be doing, and you need to be either getting out of there or you need to be doing something completely different than what you've been told to do. So there needs to be an allowance or an adjustment there. The guys on the ground have got to be able to make calls and got to be able to make decisions without running it past somebody that might fly by in the next 2 hours in a helicopter.
Yeah.
Right? Like they've got to be able to have trust in the training that the guy has on the ground, and be able to allow him to trust in his own training and to be able to make a decision.
A lot of the training that they get is specifically designed to help them make those decisions. So if they're not making the decisions, then why?
If you're a good leader, you train the people underneath you to be able to take your position if you're not there.
The best leaders make other leaders.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And their organization is not set up that way.
What do you think prevents them from using the resources that you guys had? Whether it be a policy or, lack of training.
It's probably several things. Probably policy is one. Their whole safety regime. Yeah, I don't know. Even a lack of just wanting to, I don't know, even just acknowledging that somebody other than them can fight fire.
Well, I get the sense that is the issue. Those people know that meeting up with individuals like you hasn't always made them look very good. And it's in their best interest that happens less and less.